All right, folks. So I decided to create a video series just talking about the things that I'm really passionate about. And so this is not necessarily business oriented 100%. It's not necessarily all about my personal life and not necessarily all about fitness either. It's a kind of a combination of the different things I've been thinking of, different things I'm passionate about that I want to go a little deeper, get a little more intimate, a little more vulnerable so that you all get to know me a little bit as well. So this really first video that I'm going to do here is around fitness. And I just did my first bodybuilding competition last Saturday with the federation FMG, which stands for Fitness Muscle Glamour. And I picked this federation because not only does it celebrate fitness and competition at the athletic level, but they also infuse this glamour, this modeling, fashion, and pageantry into the vibe, into the whole atmosphere of the competition. So that's what also really drew me in. I love the glamour. And so it was my very first one. I competed in two categories, wellness and bikini. And then within bikini, I competed in open class, which means anyone can be in bikini. And then I also within bikini did a round of 35 plus. So it's all women who are 35 or older. Very first experience, I didn't place. However, my reaction to that was, well, one, of course, I'm disappointed. Any athlete going to a competition, you want to come out with something, right? We all have done the work. It's a lot of hard work. But at the same time, I'm recognizing that the disappointment or the bummed out feeling I'm getting is actually just proof that I still have the athletic and the competitive spirit in me. I don't think you can be a good athlete if you are just always satisfied. If you go in saying, oh, I'm bummed out, so I'm just going to back out. No, I'm bummed out because I didn't place, but this means that I have so much more room to grow. And so I'm really looking forward to the feedback from the judges and feedback from my posing coach as well as my training coach on what's next and how I can do even better next time. So I thought I'll make this video a little more interesting too and make it into a Q&A. So I got some helpers with me behind the camera who are going to ask me some questions around my journey to fitness and anything beyond competition now. So.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Cindy. I'm going to kick it off with the first question. So, Wendy, you've already talked a little bit about competition, FMG itself, and the categories you competed in. But can you get a little deeper into you personally? Why did you decide to compete and any other thoughts you wanted to add to that?
So I decided to compete mostly because I thought I couldn't do it. There's that mixture, I think, the self-limiting belief that there are some things I can't do. But I'm also competitive too. So when I thought, oh, maybe it's something I can't do, I thought, well, maybe then I'll do it. Maybe I'll prove to myself that I'll do it. And my promise to myself at that time, which was about 2 or 3 years ago when I decided to compete, was that I want to do this before I turn 40. And so in many ways, I have achieved my goal. I made my own dream come true. I wanted to compete and step on stage before I turned 40, and here I am. I did it. On a more personal, vulnerable level, why I decided to, all the story behind of why I wanted to compete, I had years and years, my whole life, of feeling like I was in a wrong body. I had body dysmorphia. I always felt like I had no confidence. I had very low self-esteem. And growing up, I always thought my body was broken. I thought that maybe I had the worst genetics. Why did I have the body that I do? And I would look at girls around me or women in magazines and think, oh my gosh, all these women are gorgeous. They're flawless. How is it that I am so flawed? And so that's the mentality I had for my entire life. And I remember after having my daughter, all of a sudden my body's now is one that I couldn't even recognize, even though I'd been in my whole life. I had a C-section. And so that kind of added some, I would say, trauma to my body, the scarring and the just kind of my body recovered from that. I think also added to the sense of like, body's not mine. I don't like it. And then I just remember being super frustrated with my body. And then just one day I decided, I was like, you know what? I need to stop making excuses about my genetics or about whatever. Like so that, like, what am I not doing? Like, what am I telling myself that I can't do or why something is that I can't change? And so I decided that I'm just going to do it very seriously. And the more serious I got about it, the more I actually got really hooked. And then I saw a lot of the women in Instagram who are like influencers or who are competitors. And I would just look at their bodies and go, oh my gosh, they're so beautiful. They're so awesome. They're so jacked. They look so powerful. And I remember looking over to my husband, Taylor, and I said, just kind of casually, like, I don't think I could do this. And his response without hesitation was, well, of course you can. And in that moment, it stopped me because his automatic reaction to that was, of course you can. But for me, that wasn't my gut reaction. My gut reaction was I couldn't do it. And so when he felt that confident in me, I had to ask myself, why don't I feel like that about myself? I should heal that about myself. So for me, I felt like competing was in a way healing my inner child of never feeling like I was good enough and feeling like I never measured up. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take control of all that. Screw all that stuff that I told myself. Screw everything that people had told me throughout my life. I'm going to reclaim my body and reclaim my power by stepping into something that I thought I never could do.
I love that, Wendy. I feel like what you have said is very inspirational, but I'm also curious about like, was someone who really inspired you, or even like you were going into the competition, like it's people you met before or during the competition or after it?
Yeah.
Tell me about these connections that you've made.
Yes, I remember it was like on the road trip. We were like maybe from Seattle to Portland or something. So, super long road trip, but it was a road trip where, you get tired of music. And so you start listening to podcasts. And I remember I was listening to an episode of this podcast, Armchair Experts, and they happened to have a guest speaker on that one episode with Dr. Lane Norton. And I had not known who he was during that time. And so when he came on and he started talking about bodybuilding, about nutrition, about fitness, the way he talked about it felt so accessible and so inspirational at the same time. I think one of the things that really hooked me was during the introduction when he said, me as a nerd scientist who also really happens to love the gym, who lifts, or you could think of me as like a meathead who really loves science. So I thought that introduction actually was very like took me and piqued my curiosity. And the more that I listened to him in that podcast, and I don't even really remember what it was, but the way he talked about fitness, the way he put so much evidence behind it, and his passion for the space, I think really made me think about, I can get into this really more seriously than I'm doing now. Like, this is not just lifestyle for me. Maybe this is something I could do more professionally or do competitively. So he was actually my first inspiration. And I ended up actually taking a university level certificate program that he had co-created with an Australian organization called Clean Health Institute. And so I ended up taking that, and that was like more academic, or at least more approach, and not just getting training from lifting, but also taking in more scientific lessons to it. And also, Coach Lauren Killy was also my inspiration. So I had noticed her when I was looking around on Instagram, just looking through different and there's something about her that captivated me, and I just followed her journey multiple years. And especially when I decided that I wanted to compete, I was like, I had this feeling. I was like, I think I want her to be my coach. And so I just watched her. And the more that I watched her, the more I realized, yeah, this is the person for me. And I'm so glad that I picked her as my training coach. So I would say those two were my early inspirations. And of course, just looking at other athletes, you made the comment yesterday after the show, which is that puts in the work. Like, who ends up at the show on stage has done the work, and being able to see other athletes put in the work, getting inspiration, getting motivation from just their perspective. And also you start creating a community of athletes where you talk to them when you're feeling down, and they'll encourage you. Like, the encouragement that comes in this community is just really, really fabulous.
Wendy, and you were talking about putting in the work. So let's get to the specifics of what exactly the work is. So what is the hardest part about prepping for the competition, you would think?
I would say the hardest parts, there's two things. Like, a lot of people think that we're spending hours and hours and hours at the gym. And at least for the bikini division, that is not necessarily the case. You're not there, days a week for hours on end. However, prep itself was also very time consuming. So when you are working full time, you are a parent, and your schedule is somewhat bound by your child because, like, for example, my daughter goes to school at a certain time and gets off school at a certain time. So that means anything I do needs to be revolved around her schedule, as well as any work that I was doing. And so you really have to be very with your calendar. So it's not even the discipline of getting yourself to the gym. It's being disciplined with crafting your life in a way that allows this to happen. I would say how much time it consumes is a challenge. Doable, but it is challenging. So that part is actually harder than what is probably the hard factor that most people don't think about. They think it's the training. I don't think the training part is actually that hard. It is challenging, of course. You're pushing yourself in a different way. You're giving yourself a different talk at the gym. It's really part of it is just managing your time, managing your calendar, managing your life around it. The second piece I would say is the mental factor. It is a very psychological game. Prep, like I said, most people think it's physical, but I would say it's probably, actually is mental. Especially as we get closer to stage, it becomes more challenging because your food is just lower to as low as can get without damaging you, and you're still training a lot, you're still moving a lot. And when you're running on fumes, your mind starts playing games with you. You start telling yourself different things that may not be true. You get really grumpy, you're hangry a lot. So the mental aspect is actually the harder part.
Thank you, Wendy. I think that I really like the way you talked about crafting the time schedule as well as like the importance of the mentality as well as the
Yeah.
mind. I do want to pull a little bit more on the fitness side and
Yeah.
a little more about your background on your relationship with fitness. When and why did you get into fitness, and what it really means to you?
Yeah, so I think fitness has changed for me in terms of its meaningfulness throughout my life. I've been working out my whole life. So even during times when it may not look like I was the most fit, but I've been working out my whole life. Like I started to do push-ups when I was really little because I would watch my dad do push-ups and I thought it was the coolest thing. And I would do things like climb on his back. And, I was fascinated by strength and power even as a little kid. And I would say I started actually working out probably like at 9 or 10, and not necessarily for a good reason. So when I was around, I want to say like 10, it's probably around 10 years old. I'm not going to go into exactly who and whatnot because, I open up some cancer drama. But basically, when I was around 10, it was taken to a front of a mirror, and then it was pointed out to me all the things in my body that was wrong. And that part was actually, I carried throughout my whole life because from that moment, as a 10-year-old, I realized, oh my gosh, like so much wrong with me. Like knees weren't good enough. My neck wasn't good enough. Like from top to bottom was pointed out to me, like all the things that were wrong about me. And I believed that as a kid. And I grew up thinking that there was so much wrong with me. And I would look at other girls and I remember just thinking, like, why am I born broken? And how come they are all so pretty? So imagine growing up as in that culture where you see it in the media where constantly reminded that you're not pretty enough and that your only worth as a girl is to be pretty. And so the thing that I held on to, was, okay, I can do well in school, so that's my superpower. But then I also realized that I was also very strong. So I was strong my whole life. So I took that as always a positive, but of course, you know what I mean? And so when you're a really strong girl, picked on for being strong. And then I was being picked on for being ugly. So I started working out not because I wanted to better myself from a positive place. I wanted to fix what was broken. And when you take that mentality to fitness, you will never get to where you want to be because if you and I know this is really popular now. There are folks like David Goggins, a lot of respect to him, but there's a lot of that culture where it's based on you're not good enough, don't be normal, like bad, like you're a fat slop, you're lazy, so do something about it to fix yourself. And maybe you could use a little bit of that to jumpstart, but the thing is, if you're always out there to chase what you don't want to become, you're always going to be aimless because there's a lot of things between what you don't want and all the different other options of what you want to become. So I would say about who you want to become. What does fitness mean to you? If you think of fitness as a lifestyle supporter, like I want to be able to live long, I want to be able to live healthy and enjoy life, then fitness will look very different than for somebody else for whom it's more than just health. For them, it's also a competitive passion, right? And so for me, I think I've always had some competitive passion, but then I also believed that I wasn't good enough. So I never really went serious into anything. I got into boxing, I got into judo, I got into kickboxing. So I've been active my whole life. And I've also tried starvation methods, right? I've tried keto, I've tried eating meat, and I always would. And then the crazy thing is, I would look back at all my different photos, and yeah, weight went up and down throughout my life. And the one thing that I would always notice though was that I was never fat. Whole life I was told I was fat, I was that. And like, it's never true. You know, part of like, I guess, getting to this age and getting to my own healing through fitness is realizing that I had so much wasted time of feeling badly about myself when in fact none of it was just true. All of it is perception, right? Close to 40 now, and I feel like I'm in the best shape ever. You know, I feel like I'm in the best state I've ever been in. So age is not the issue, and in fact, age has made me realize that self-love really is where it all starts. And I think fitness does need to come from a place of self-love, because even if you don't get serious and you don't have to live like a bodybuilder, you don't have to live like an athlete to get into it, but really it needs to come from a place of like, you are in this one body, give it respect, give it love. And the way that you do it is to sometimes do the things that aren't fun, but they will help your body. Like, it's like choosing not to eat the chocolate or just choosing to eat half a piece. And that's not a sacrifice. Like, I like, have to also reframe your mind about what it all means. Is it a sacrifice, or is it just that you're making a choice that aligns better with what your body needs? And so part of my journey into this was also wanting to heal my relationship with food. Carried some of the habits into adulthood. Like, I don't have a lot of snacks in my house. Maybe now I do because, I have a kid, and actually, stocked a lot of chocolate recently for post show. But normally I don't carry a lot of snacks because I grew up with not a lot of snacks in the house. And I remember, like, anyone would go out to eat, I was encouraged to eat as much as I could, because you're not going to get this again. You're not going to get this at home, or eat the snack now because we don't buy this at home. And so it kind of created this relationship where anytime I got really good food, I felt like I had to eat as much as I could, or I felt like I had to finish what was in front of me. That if there was something good, I had to eat it because I'm not going to get it again. I don't know if I'm going to have it again, because I know it's not going to be at home, and it's going to be whenever we do go out, or if there's a special occasion. And in some ways, I had to really start healing that process too, of how do I look at food? How do my relationship with food? And part of it is also in this journey, me reframing certain things. Like, I don't crave things. I don't say that I crave things. Yes, craving is a real word, and sometimes it does serve a purpose to use that. But for my own reframing, I had to think of it as, I'm not craving food. What I am feeling is, what's happening is I'm feeling like I want something, but I don't need to give into that because I don't need it, right? Like, something just means you have a feeling for it. It doesn't mean that you need to chase that feeling. Or the word, I don't like to use that phrase anymore, because it implies that if you're going to have this meal, you're cheating on your nutrition, and your food is not so sacred that you can cheat on it. Okay. I like to think of it now as, yeah, you stick to plan, and then every once in a while, you give yourself a little treat, treat meal. That's what it is. It's a treat meal. You don't have treats all the time. But part of my relationship with food was also recognizing that I don't need to think of it as craving. I don't need to think of it from a scarcity mindset, like, oh, I don't know when I'm going to have it, so I better have it as much as I can now, or making myself hyped up and start chasing cheat meals. It's like, I can have it anytime I want, but I'm choosing not to in the moment because there's a higher goal. And then when I do get to have it, I'm going to enjoy it, but I don't need to have all of it. So part of that is still a journey. And that part really does come up throughout the prep process too, like the mental talk around food, which is a lot. But I feel like I've come a long way from when I started to now. My story to why has always been more nuanced than just, oh, I wanted to get fit. So.
Yeah, thank you, Wendy, for sharing, and appreciate you being very vulnerable and talking about our connection to food and connection to your fitness journey. And so, jumping back to the competition prep process, what did you learn? What is one thing that you learned about yourself throughout this process?
Yeah, I see a lot of parallels between fitness and leadership. So I'm a leadership gal. That's what I do professionally. And not to make a plug about my work, but I think that's also when fitness clicked for me, was when I was lifting something really heavy at the gym and I didn't think I could do it. And then I did it and I felt so good. And I thought, there's some other things that I told myself that I couldn't do, but I can, right? And also, what are some things that people are doing in their business and the way they're leading, the way they're managing people, that they are locked into a certain mindset only because they're not willing to eat different things or to self-reflect on where they've been the roadblock. And so What's the question again? I lost it. What to learn about myself. Yeah. So I think one thing is that I can do something hard. Like what showed me was this wasn't to get into it, like never really as hard as you make it. I think what is hard is we imagine that everything needs to happen all at once, right? It's kind of like a little kid who asks you, what does it take to become an astronaut? And you say, well, you have to do well in school, you have to go and maybe a PhD or get an advanced degree in science and then train and end up in with this organization and train a certain way. And like, that sounds a lot. Like, you think that all needs to happen at once. Yeah, it will seem like it's a huge mountain. But really, what you're doing is you're taking step one. Like, step one is just graduate elementary school, right? That's just step one. And then you do the other steps. And it's just the same thing with fitness. You're not going to be doing everything all at once. And when like people think about what a fitness plan looks like, even just for the general population, not for athletes, they think, oh my gosh, I got to do all of this at once. I got to get my sleep right. I got to drink all this water. I got to do all the steps. I got to do, like, I don't have the time. They get overwhelmed. And really, the key is you got to take things step by step. So first, if you're not sleeping well and you're not drinking enough water, I'm going to tell you right now, you're probably not functioning the way that you could. So before you tackle anything big, do the small things. So maybe it's first, gotta get a different water bottle, or I gotta get a new water bottle that motivates me, that reminds me that I need to drink water. Maybe I need to set up my life, organize my life in a way that I can go to bed early, or I just stop doom scrolling, whatever it is. So it's the little things. And I think when a lot of women I've talked to who are in similar positions as me, you started a business pretty recently in the last 2 years or so, and we think we need to do everything all at once, right? Because they tell you, oh my gosh, you need to have social media, you gotta get your marketing, you gotta get your sales, you gotta do all this stuff, and you gotta do bookkeeping, you gotta do tax. Like, it sounds like a lot. It sounds like you have to do it all at once, but you don't. And there's gonna be periods where you will not do so well, but then you'll learn from it. So I think what it is that also teaching me to be okay to fail. It's teaching me to be okay to be new at something. Like, I have not been new at something in a really long time. Like, I had a corporate career for over 10 years. I knew exactly what it was. It got to a point where no job became challenging because every job was the same. And I had gotten my degrees already, and what I studied in my degree applied to my work. So I had not been new at something for a really long time until, of course, I became a mom. And then, it's new. And then getting more serious into fitness, that was new. And then doing prep and then starting a business, like, that's new. And it can feel very overwhelming. But one of the greatest lessons my coach taught me throughout this process was allow yourself to be new at something. Allow yourself to be a beginner. A beginner doesn't means that you're not going to get everything right. Being a beginner means you're still allowing yourself to fail and to learn from it quickly. And it also means that you don't need to achieve gold right? So being a beginner just means that you are allowing yourself to be in the thick of it, to be in the learning curve. And because most people cannot make it past the beginner phase because they get into it, they feel like, oh, it's too hard. And so they get out. A lot of people who start a business, they realize very soon it's really hard and then they get out. And I kind of got too a little bit before I got more serious. It's anything. So if you have a goal, if you believe in something and it has a meaning to you and it makes sense for you to do this, then you have to stick with it until you get there. And I think Alex Hermosi says this too. Like, you do one thing and kept doing it for 5 years, like, you are gonna make it somewhere. Like, people only want to try things for a year or so and then they give up and they say they don't work. But have you really stuck to it for 5+ years? Because unless you've done that, you're not really gonna see growth. Like, we think everything is fast. Realize through this that we have like a fast food expectation. Everything needs to be fast, right? Everything needs to be here in 2 minutes. We want to DoorDash everything. We want a delivery of service. We want Amazon delivery service with everything, but nothing is actually really that fast. Anything that you want to work towards, you want to work for, is going to take time. And I think that was one of the greatest lessons, is that you need to exercise so much patience. As an athlete, you're going to put in so much work, but you may not get the same. And if you do it for and that's why they say that if you do it for recognition, you're going to fail, because it's never going to match the level of work you put in. And so you have to do it for something greater than just validation. Like, it has to come from within. Like, there needs to be a strong why. There needs to be a strong alignment to your mission, to whatever it is that you're pursuing.
Yeah, I love that. And I really think I'm really inspired by how you're speaking. And so now the last question is, what's next for you?
So what's next will be looking forward to the feedback. Like I said, I was bummed out that I didn't place, but this is my very first show, and I, in two categories that are actually pretty different. I'm curious to see what the feedback is in terms of where could I have more potential? Is it in wellness? Was it in bikini? And seeing the feedback from my posing coach as well as my training coach, because though she wasn't able to be here in person, she was logging on, she was watching it, and so she could see me on stage. I'm looking forward to hearing, like, can I grow? Like, really my focus now is, okay, so I didn't place. Okay, what do I need to do to place next time? And what do I need to do to get my pro card? So for me, I'm all about growth, but immediately it's back to the grind, right? Like, people think you can do whatever you want. No, I have to be on a recovery diet, on a recovery phase. So I still got to do training. I still need to eat in a way that's sustainable and train in a way that's sustainable without losing a lot of my progress. So that's what's next.
I have one bonus question.
Okay.
We talked a lot about your passion for fitness, your backstory, as well as people who inspire you. But I'm curious about like, say, in the future, like your goal, what kind of woman you want to become and inspire people in what kind of way, if you want to summarize that in one sentence, like of all ages when they approach you, whether it's for professional advice or for fitness advice, or even to connect personally, like, is that one thing that you want people to think of you when they think about Wendy Kleinfeld?
Yeah, I would say power. I've been really to that word. And what I mean by that is when people think of power, they think of like a power, like I say this, you do this, and having control over someone. I think of power as really from power from within. So I think a lot of women, even women who are confident in what they do, a lot of them still don't have self-worth. So I think there's so much power that we can unleash when we first acknowledge the power we hold within, meaning know who you are, right? And be unapologetic about who you are. Unapologetic for asking and pursuing what you want. Because I think a lot of us women, we hold ourselves back. Some of us have learned to get out of that cycle. If you are wanting to be in a space where you want to feel more confident, you want to feel more audacious, and want to feel like you deserve that you do or receive, you need to first of all acknowledge how awesome you are. And I don't mean that in like a very egocentric way, like looking at yourself in the mirror and going, oh, I'm so awesome. I think everyone has a gift that they bring to this world, and everyone has a potential to grow into something really meaningful, but we hold ourselves back because of fear. And so when you know yourself so deeply about what your purpose is and what you want to do, I think that knowledge itself will help you get out of that fear phase. But it does take some time, and I want women to realize that they hold so much power within. Women, we have the ability to create life. That is something that it's a superpower. If we can do that, just think about what else we can do that we're telling ourselves we can literally create life in our body, and yet we're scared to go apply for a job. Like the ways that we tell ourselves we're not good enough. I want women to realize that it's okay to be multiple things. It's okay to come into your power in ways that you never imagined. Tell women that that they can either be smart or beautiful, that if they want to be powerful, that they're bitchy. All these things that women always are, figure out what place they can land. And I think you can be many things. You can be a power boss, you can be sexy, you can be a mom, you can be all that wrapped together. It's all about you defining you. And that's where true power is. When nobody can come and tell you who you are or aren't, because you know yourself so well and you can execute on your own dreams and goals, and you don't need somebody else to define you for you. That is when your true power can come. So in short, I know you said just one word, but I can't just distill it to one word. If it's one word, it's power, but that's what power means to me. And that's where I can imagine more women can lean into.
Thank you so much, Wendy.
Thank you. Okay, folks, hopefully, I know this was longer than usual, but that's the purpose of this, so that I can deep dive into some of my own internal process, as well as my thoughts on different topics like leadership, fitness, and business. So more videos will come out on several different topics, but the thing here is I'm going to get a little more little deeper, a little more personal, a little more vulnerable in these videos than some of my shorter reels on Instagram. So until next time.